everyone, welcome once again to Gotham Discussions. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxi.
How you doing, Steve?
Good, how are you doing, Cap?
I'm doing very well. Unfortunately, we don't have Dan's news in the program today. We knew this was going to happen, and I don't know if we announced it to the audience, but he's not with us even in video or anything because he is off in Sweden land. He's in Sweden, right? Sweden, I think, this week. Sweden. And he is off having a good time out of the country and was not going to have a chance to watch the show and record anything for us. So we will get a few thoughts from him on this episode. And I hate that he's not here because this one's really cool and there's some nice, there's going to be some fun stuff to talk about with it. So anyway, so you're stuck with me and Steve. We're going to do our best to give you a good conversation without the amazing Dan's news, and we'll hear from him again next week. Before we jump into today's episode, Viper, we're going to, as always, answer some questions from the audience from last week and respond to some comments. But even before that happens, I want to mention something quite amusing. There was a guy who saw our video last week and heard me talking about all of the shoe puns that Eric and I came up with, and he decided to draw Killer Crocs. And he drew Killer Croc wearing Crocs. Yeah. So anyway, you can see it on your screen right now. I thought this was absolutely hilarious. And do you see it?
I do.
What do you think? What do you think? Isn't that great?
Oh, that's fantastic. My sister has shoes almost exactly the same color.
When I showed it to Eric, he said the best thing about it is that he's not wearing Crocs that are the color of his skin. Like, he's wearing like a color that doesn't even kind of match. It's absolutely fantastic. So anyway, this was Golden Crandall on Facebook. I'm sorry I don't know the YouTube channel. I asked him about it. I haven't heard from him back yet. So anyway, Golden Crandall. He also drew another picture for something that Dan said on Flash Discussions last week, and I'll show you that on Flash Discussions. It's pretty great, too. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into some questions and comments from last time. And I'm just going to run through this real quick. Give me a second. Josh Blackwell, I thought it was funny how no one cared when Gordon walked through the center aisle of the station exclaiming into the phone, "His target is the mayor!" Even if everyone in that room is paid off, no one was startled or looked up when he's yelling that the most important man in the city is in immediate danger. They all just stare down at their desks doing work.
Yeah, I wonder if it really is just all these cops are just so passive at this point that they wonder whether or not they should respond unless they're forced to.
Soon we'll find that this kind of thing actually happens every other week.
Yeah.
And I mean, now I will say that the mayor did seem surprised, right? It wasn't like the mayor was like, "Oh my God, this is like the 5th time a cop has walked in and I've had to clean my safe out." But I do find myself wondering with things like this if it was on purpose or not.
Yeah, because the show is really stylized, and the corruption especially is so much so that, as the viewer mentioned last time, that the city wouldn't even function. So it's hard to say whether or not that's just a directorial oversight, or if it really is kind of like Bullock, where it's not really their problem until someone makes it their problem.
Exactly, yeah. Slash and Bones 13, balloons, spikes, poison food. Can anyone just shoot people in this show?
Apparently only the killer of Martha and Thomas Wayne.
That's right. He uses a gun. That's
He pauses with it, though, so, you know, there's a little bit of a dramatic flair.
That's true, yeah. Johnny5222, "Hey Cap, I think the girl at the bar could be their version of Zatanna, but she doesn't have any magic that we know of. She's dressed like her. That's the only character I can think of that could be her." So I'm trying to figure out who the heck this girl is that is working for Fish Mooney now. Was very excited that at the end of this episode, I think that's who he's talking about, was very excited that at the end of this episode, we finally know what she was grooming her for and what all that's about. And it was about what I expected it might be. But getting to see it play out and not being told immediately, okay, so what you're gonna do is go pretend to be this other person with Falcone and you know, get under his skin. I really like the way that all played. I guess we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But like still, she's not named, and Steve, she's gotta be somebody, right?
Yeah, she does. I think someone pointed out that they gave her like a really short just first name, but I'm not sure.
Ooh, if they did, tell me what it is, somebody, because I didn't find it. I didn't see it here.
Yeah, I didn't see it listed on IMDb or anything, so I'm not sure.
Okay. And, like, Honey and Baby doesn't count. You know what I mean? Like, so, no, I don't think there's an actual name anywhere.
Well, there's like that honey doll kind of thing from that Batman animated series episode with Killer Croc.
She calls everybody that. Hezekiah Ramirez, why in the blue hell would they target the mayor? Don't you think that's bad for business? You can't have organized crime without law and order. So if you have cats targeting the mayor willy-nilly, what does that say about your city? What do you say about that?
Well, if I remember right, the assassin at that point to kill the mayor was going to be paid off by Maroney. So Maroney is clearly not one for old school rules, or else he would be okay with working with Falcone and what he's doing.
Yeah, and Maroney is a hothead, and he's like really quick to a boil, and it doesn't take much to set him off and get him to do really extreme things. Having said that, I can see where he's coming from. Right,
yeah.
where it's like really like over the Arkham thing. You're gonna target the mayor. Because I'm just saying that I would figure in this situation it doesn't seem quite big enough. I mean, they're making a big deal out of how important Arkham is, and I get that, but it makes me feel like it makes it seem like we would see the mayor get targeted constantly.
Yeah, I mean, they don't make a point out of the fact that the mayor is a job with a lot of turnover. Because if it was, then we can understand that whenever someone gets in either crime boss's way, they die, and so the mayor isn't really a job for people that want to move up.
That's a good point. We've heard a lot of, well, what is the point of knocking off a bad politician in whatever role they're in? They're just going to get replaced with somebody else that's corrupt. Why is the mayor immune to that?
Yeah, and I mean, like, a big thing with mayors in Gotham is that they were put in place by crime bosses. So it wouldn't be that hard to kill him and replace him. I don't feel like it's that extreme, but I can certainly see the point that, yeah, this is the mayor of the city, he's working with the mob already. It's funny that we target him so quickly.
James Bond. Is that your real name? James Bond? And he's got a picture of Beware the Batman next to it, so
that's awesome.
It makes me wonder if he's a big James Bond fan or if his name's actually James. Anyway, so Jim asks, James Bond asks, I never even noticed this, but Gotham uses the same location for Wayne Manor as Batman Forever. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, cool. I didn't realize that either. I had to look it up when I saw the comment. Yeah, it's the same manor. It's really cool.
Double Hilo, I'm glad I'm not the only one who practically saw the hose they were using to spray the rain in that scene. Miles Cummings, hey guys! I know it's still early in the series, but have your opinions changed on the choices of actors who play the characters in this show? It seemed like in the first episode you guys were pretty iffy on how some of the actors were playing their roles. Now that we're getting further into the show, even if it's just a few episodes further, do you feel that the actors are doing a spot-on interpretation of the characters, or do you, or do some need to step it up a bit? I'm going to say that I'm already in a place where it's not about doing a spot-on interpretation so much as it is about making it their own.
Yeah,
and I think
agree.
that everybody's doing that now. The only person I don't like is Barbara. I think everybody else is well cast and playing their roles well, and I think that that I was iffy at the beginning, maybe less because of it's really hard to be sure about acting stuff in a pilot sometimes. And where I was there was I think less about acting ability and more about, is this the right person for this part, or should this character even be in this show? There's nobody right now that I'm going, that's a weak link, except for Barbara.
Yeah, I agree. I'd echo a lot of that, because all of these actors are making good enough versions of the characters for their acting ability alone. The only exception, like Barbara, I think would also probably be the actress for Renee Montoya, because she's not in a lot of episodes right now, and whenever she does show up, I usually hate her scenes as well.
See,
so
I don't think that's the actress.
I want her to do more before I say anything.
Yep,
but she doesn't have like the gravitas that everyone else had immediately.
Perhaps I don't have enough to go on saying this. I don't think that's her. I think that's what she's given to do right now.
That's fair, because she is always in the worst scenes whenever she is there.
Red Leader and Tilly's, we talked last week about the possibility of supernatural stuff in the show. oh boy, we're already there. There's, or at least super science, pseudo, up heightened stuff. Red Letter Antilles says they could use Clayface because the original Basil Carlo only used masks for his crimes in the Golden Age. Also, the Val Bruce makes that Steve is talking about was actually a few days later, according to Detective 33. Okay, I didn't know that. But as far as the Clayface thing goes, yeah, I can see why you said that last week. This week, you got to look at this and say, well, now they can just straight up do Clayface, right? Like I think
they're at that point where they can easily do Clayface. It's just a matter of I don't think the cops will be able to stop them.
I am so glad that if they're gonna go to that kind of, again, crazy pseudoscience stuff in order to do superpowers and things like that, that they have already given us an episode about it. Because last week, a bunch of people, because we were talking about the possibility of that stuff, and a lot of people were saying, oh man, the balloon thing is too out there. This wants to be a more grounded universe. I never bought that. I always thought we were in a more heightened out there kind of comic book universe, and that those things might be possible. I don't think we will see magic in this universe, but I think it's going to do that. That they clearly want to go very comic book traditional Batman, where superpowers are possible through science and through other explanations. Here we have the precursor to Venom. It does what Venom does, except it kills you in like 6 minutes, and Venom is mentioned. Oh, cool. You know what I mean? The thing is, they need this kind of stuff so that I buy the other weird things that are not supernatural, but not real life possible. I think that if you watch this episode and you go back to the Balloon Man, and maybe I'm partly saying this just because I love the Balloon Man, but if you go back to the Balloon Man after you see this, and at first you were like, the balloon thing's too out there, I don't think you'd call it too out there now, having seen this. Now, if you didn't want that, and this is too out there for you, that's a taste thing, and you might not really, like the direction the show is going. But this is a universe where anything that's ever happened to Batman can happen.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think it's certainly a little bit out there, but I think ultimately it does work. And
within the context of this universe, I think it's very common. But after you've done that, you can do Clayface. Now you can do Poison Ivy. Any of that stuff can be done now.
Yeah, it's ultimately like, if you're going to do more fantastical stuff, would the cops in this particular period of the show have the ability to handle those threats? And probably not. But it's also a little bit like Batman Begins, where it's certainly really grounded, but you wouldn't have to work very hard to get to the more fantastical.
Yeah, well, and Arrow proved that.
Yeah, exactly. Arrow Season 2, when we got everything with Solomon Grundy, it certainly wouldn't be that hard to evolve the characters to that point.
And then get us, like, you wouldn't have thought that Flash could even happen in that universe after watching the first 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah, precisely. And Flash being such a good contrast to that show with superpowers. So
Spartanite 67. So far, my biggest problem with the show is that there appears to be only one room in Wayne Manor. Every scene takes place in that one library sitting room. I don't need much. Just show me the kitchen or something. Did we go to any other rooms this time? Because it felt more open to me there, and we spent more time there. Or was it still just that one room?
I don't think we do. I think it's just a matter of we took different shots of the same room this time. But yeah, it is kind of weird that Bruce just spends all of his time in that one area. Although it wouldn't be too out there for Batman. Batman only hangs out in the cave and in his bedroom, so...
Boo Rat, I'll bet you real money, Captain Logan, they get back together. We're talking Barbara and Gordon. They sort of pseudo broke up at the end of last episode. Within a few episodes because she's pregnant. She's pregnant?
I don't think she is. She didn't say anything about being pregnant.
I didn't realize that. Is that a thing? Is that in there? If that's in there, I missed it. If that's in the pilot or something, I missed it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen every episode twice so far. I don't think she's pregnant.
Now that that's in the show, it's the only reason they would stay together. Also, it helps make James Gordon Jr.'s insanity story more interesting when he grows up and finds out his conception/birth was a mistake. Yeah, I would agree with that if they did that, but I don't know that she's pregnant. Also, just because I don't want every single thing in the show to have to be a tragedy. Like, isn't it much more interesting if Gordon and Barbara actually like each other? You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to see them have to be together just because they have a kid together. That just sounds tedious. watching to me.
And I mean, like, one of the endearing things about James Gordon, like in year one and stuff, is that he makes mistakes, but he owns up to them, and they stay together because of his honesty, and they just work together. It's only a matter of Barbara can't take the life that he chose. So, I mean, yeah, I don't feel like you need to do the tragedy so much. It would certainly fit with how broken they're making Gordon by the end of this episode.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was saying, it would certainly fit with how broken they're making Gordon so far.
You're right about that.
It's a little Full Metal Alchemist, though, where, like, every episode something terrible and heartbreaking and emotionally draining would happen if they tried something like that.
Yeah. Hezekiah Ramirez also said that maybe the name for our shoe and feet pun, Clayface, should have been Feet of Clay. That's a good point you're making.
That's fantastic.
Jacob May, I was disappointed that Penguin didn't use the alias Penguin.
Oh yeah, you're right. That is kind of a bummer.
This is interesting. I would be really surprised if this is where they were going with it, but Joaquin Morgren, maybe the girl Mooney hired is Selina's mother. Also, why is it that the main character of every live-action DC show always has an annoying love interest? Harold has Laurel and Smallville had Lana. Yeah, I know. I've been saying the same sort of things. Yeah, but yeah, could that be a possibility? I don't know. She looks awfully young.
Yeah, and we saw the locket that had, like, Selina's mother's picture in it in the second episode. I'm not sure if they're the same actress. I'd have to go back and look.
I would really doubt it. I'm just saying, I don't think that the girl, maybe I'm wrong, just looking at her, it doesn't seem like the girl that we're talking about is more than 7 or 8 years older than Selina is right now. I mean, like, she's like 13. This girl doesn't look older than 20 or 21 to me. I don't see how it's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, even if they did something like that, I think it would work. Is
she 25? Is she 30? She doesn't look 30. She doesn't look 25 to me. She looks really young. She looks right out of high school.
Yeah. It'd be really implausible. And even if they did something like that, I would wonder, like, because that would make the city so much smaller, and everything so far has been working really well, and they make the scale of it work. Like Selina showing up in this episode for 2 minutes and disappearing, I think that works because all of these characters are stuck in their ways and they do what they want, and every now and then they'd run into each other. If we just have all those plots converge like that, I think it would go back to the pilot problem of the city is a little too convenient because it's too small.
Yeah, and so far they've done a decent job of getting away from that. I'm still really appreciating that this far in, we're still not making every important person have to be a major villain that we've heard of like we were doing in the pilot. And I was really expecting a lot more of that. Luckily, we didn't have that with the Viper thing. And it could have easily been okay. It's somebody you've heard of. It's Bane's father or something.
Yeah, they could have done like King Snake or something like that. It wouldn't have worked necessarily.
I mean, it could have, and minor stuff, whatever. And we've already had a reference to the Dollmaker. But isn't it cool that, like, second episode out, we had like a reference to the Dollmaker. We're 5 episodes in, we haven't even heard him mention again. Yeah, eventually we'll see that character. Yeah. Probably. But like, so
it works because the city is already so corrupt. You're going to get different people all the time before you go back to any one plot thread. I think that definitely works in its favor.
One thing that people kept saying that was irritating me with the pilot was that people kept calling all those villains popping in cameos, and I'm starting to feel like people were not necessarily wrong to use that word now, because like we haven't seen Poison Ivy again. I'm sure we will at some point. She'll be back, but I'm just saying that like I expected every episode you'd have like Poison Ivy subplot or something, or every other, nothing yet. So I mean, like I don't know. I'm just saying. Now you probably are not watching this video if you haven't been watching this show, but I would encourage folks to get past the pilot and watch a couple, because it is much more sophisticated than they gave us, or at least interesting and not altogether callable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. And I remember I complained quite a bit about all those villain cameos, and some of them were recurring characters, some of them were main characters, and it's hard to differentiate at this point. Because even like Edward Nygma, who's a main character, only appears for like 2 seconds an episode. But I think a lot of that's working at this point, because they're using that to build scale.
Last one, Dimitri J. I find the subplot of Fish Mooney training a protege is being handled very poorly. Now, he left this 4 hours ago, so he's probably seen the most recent episode. Why would these two... But I don't know. Why would these two young girls who seem pretty normal and level-headed be this eager to work for this mysterious job? I don't know that they seem level-headed necessarily.
No, I don't think so either.
They have no idea what they're signing up for and can obviously tell their employers are on the shady side. But it seems like they want to be in that world. Why would they be so willing to fight each other with no questions or hesitation? And if she needs someone strong and capable of handling business like she claims, why is she basing her criteria around their singing ability and their ability to seduce her? Aren't there other qualities she should be looking for? Okay, so this person maybe has not seen today's episode, because I feel like now that we know what it is that they're trying to do, but I can kind of see where it's coming from. Let me ask you this question. Does it make sense, and let's just jump into the episode now and start here. Let's just start with the Fish Mooney stuff and work our way backwards. So going into Viper now. Does it make sense that she's keeping it a secret from this girl that she's going to be going after Falcone? Or is that just so that the audience won't know and we can be surprised by it? Because it was a satisfying reveal, but now that I read this guy's comment, I'm thinking, I don't know why she couldn't tell her that up front. Because if it's just a, well, I don't want you to go around telling anyone, at some point you have to tell her because she has to go see Falcone, right? So, yeah. I mean, is it just, I need to make sure, maybe she's feeling her out through the whole thing. Maybe it's, I have to make sure I can trust you enough to even tell you what it is. That's the best I can come up with.
Yeah, because she makes this important when we first cut to Fish Mooney and this woman, and she says that you have to earn the fact that I'd be your mother. So
yeah,
and I wonder if it really is that she's grooming her, and when we finally see her at the end go to Falcone, at that point she's explained the plan to her only, and we have to wait to hear it next episode or something like that. Because for the whole episode, from last episode to now, aside from the last 2 minutes of this episode, it all feels like one long audition process.
Yeah, and it is. And I wonder if she's not twisting it to be this like really weird, perverse, like I want you to pretend like I'm your mother and Falcone is your father, and you're the, like, backstabbing child that chooses one over the other or something. But I'm not sure yet where the whole I'm your mother thing, although that doesn't work, because she says you haven't earned that right yet.
Yeah, it's
so
weird.
I don't know what it is yet, but they're giving it to us pretty slow and deliberately, so I can expect that I will get it here in a little bit, right? Like the fact that they threw me that bone at the end, and like, of course, I love seeing Falcone on screen, and I'm interested in learning more about him, and so, like, you know, they give me that at the end, and so I'm with them on it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm very interested in all of that. I hope it all ultimately pans out and makes sense, but I think it will. I think it will.
Like at the very end, or she's being groomed to act like Falcone's mother, and then Fish Mooney is working with another member of the crime family that they were fighting with earlier. Mm-hmm. Fish Mooney's clearly playing a game on multiple fronts. And I wonder if, us giving all the credit to Penguin and his manipulative ability, we didn't realize the fact that Fish Mooney got to where she is for a reason.
It's also important.
She certainly seems as capable as Penguin at this point.
But importantly, it's not just that she's as capable as Penguin; it's that she trained him.
Yeah, very
Penguin
true.
wouldn't be as good as he is if it weren't for her. And he strategically stabbed her in the back, just as she is going to do with Falcone, even though she's pretending loyalty. And I think a lot of the big idea they're playing with there, of course, is that you can't have this kind of corruption, and you can't treat people this way and be completely out for yourself and no one else, and still maintain any kind of idea of loyalty. That's not an ideal you can have.
Yeah, and I remember, I think a couple weeks ago, you mentioned that idea of young versus old. And that certainly seems to be in there, because Falcone...
And look how young this girl is, right? So you've got Falcone, and then you have her, and then you have this girl who's a lot younger, and Fish seems to know that she can manipulate Falcone with a really young girl that he'll be attracted to. I want to know who it is that she reminds him of. Is it a daughter?
Oh, it's his mother. He says it's his mother.
Oh, does he say that? I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, at the very end, he says that the song that she's humming is a song that his mother used to sing.
Yeah, the song does.
And then the way she looks reminds him of that too, or something like that. Like he's very flabbergasted by the whole thing.
I should mention, by the way, that I've had such a crazy busy last couple of days that I watched this episode literally 5 minutes before we started recording. So I'm still getting my thoughts together on it, and I'm not gonna have a perfect, everything put together. So thanks for that. Okay, what else should we talk? Anything else you want to mention about the whole Fish Mooney thing?
Not so much. I think that's a good way to transition from Fish Mooney over to Falcone, because Falcone and Maroni are so interesting. I want a spin-off called Maroni and Falcone. Like, they should just get their own show. Everything with them is amazing so far.
And they just run an Italian restaurant together, and...
Yes. Yeah. They're doing a lot of Sopranos stuff and a lot of Godfather stuff. It's weird.
They are.
Like, the way the actor who for Falcone plays the role... He feels a lot like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, and it almost makes you wonder if he really is going to die by the end of this first season.
I know, me too.
And everything with Maroni and the restaurant front and everything, it's really indicative of Sopranos.
Yeah. I wonder if they weren't looking at exactly those two things, and you would expect some of that to rub off on it, but I think that's deliberate. I mean, you look at those two men, and just the builds and the looks and the accents and all of it, and where they come from and all of that. Well, not Gotham, but you know what I mean.
Like Italy and stuff.
All of that, yes. Feels like those archetypes, right? One feels like
Falcone is eating oranges or something.
Yeah, exactly. I would appreciate more of that stuff if I watched more of those sorts of things. And watching the show and enjoying it makes me want to finally get into some of those things more. You know what I mean? I'm loving Maroni. And he's terrifying. I think we have an answer to a question I asked last week, which was, does Penguin have this master plan where he always knows what's going to happen to him? The answer to that at this point, I think, must be no. I think he's taking chances. I think he's taking giant risks, and I think that and as Maroni calls him, he's a player. He is willing to put himself in huge, dire, horrifying situations that he might not make it out alive, because I think that Penguin has this... This is just what I think right now. I could be wrong. Really hope that they don't play it ultimately like he had a master plan so completely figured out that he knew that his head would go on the slicer and he wouldn't get killed. You know what I mean? We cannot go that far. Gordon could have said the one thing that would have made Maroni mad. Now he knew that he had to have known that Gordon would probably tell him a similar story, but he did not seem to know that Maroni was going to go as far as, if Gordon doesn't tell me what I want to hear. And he couldn't have, that I'm going to kill you. He also couldn't have even known that he was going to go get Gordon. He couldn't have known all of that. So he's a master manipulator, but he's not, he's not the like, ridiculous, like, Spawn level master manipulator where just, like, whatever we write he knew all along, and don't think about it, kids, or it will make your brain explode. It's like time travel. So
I think it's a lot like in the fact that he's a manipulator, but he's not a master, and he kind of thinks he is at some points.
Yeah, and that's a big failing, and he's gonna get better at it. Like, I think we're seeing him ultimately become the Penguin that we know, which of course is an obvious thing to say, but I guess the reason I say it like that is because I think that they're doing it right.
Yeah, I think the way I read that scene when he's telling Maroni his story is Penguin does have a master plan, and Penguin knows where he wants to go, but he has this problem of a pride and an ego, and every time he gets in this position that feels like it's just a little bit too far out of his reach and it's coming here perfectly, he wants to be overzealous about it. And that's what gets him in trouble. And you can see, like, there's a very distinct performance that he's giving when he's being all humble and when he's being beat up by Maroni. And you can see, like, his plans are still in the works, but it's not working exactly the way it is because he's not being able to retain his ego enough. He's not patient enough the way Fish Mooney is. He hasn't perfected that art of being humble and terrifying at the same time the way she has.
I think it's important to point out that you can't get anywhere in these organizations without being somewhat unhinged.
Yes.
I think you have to be somewhat emotionally unstable, and I think when you look at Maroni, he is, and I think Falcone is more put together, but he has to have some of that too. He just hides it better. I would assume he has to have some of that too. Or maybe he's such a good businessman that he actually doesn't and he's able to play that. I don't know, but when I look at Penguin, there are times where I go, he's acting this way not because it's how he really feels, but because he's trying to get up a rung in a ladder. But when he does something like freak out and his eyes go crazy whenever anyone calls him a penguin, that he's not doing that on purpose, right? Like that is involuntary. He has a complex about that.
Yeah, I think Falcone is a little bit. He has to be insane in the sense that, not like clinically insane, but he has to be unhinged in the sense that he's deluded himself into thinking that all of these bosses are a family, and he calls them such, and he doesn't understand that his philosophy of crime is ruining the city that he claims to love. So there's got to be evidence he's purposely pushing out of the way, and that might be why he got where he is, because he's able to use the system that he agrees with, and everything else doesn't. But he doesn't see the failing in that system. The way Penguin sees all of the failings and why it works, he just doesn't have the skills to get up there yet.
I'm gonna say this. I think I don't look at it exactly the same way. I think what it is that Falcone thinks the system is working differently than it is. Like,
yeah, maybe so.
when you say that, like, the system that he helped create is destroying the city and he can't see it, I think he can't see what the system really is, because I think he believes in loyalty and nobody else does, and he doesn't see it. And so I think that the system he put in place is not the system that's there now. It's morphed. It's become perverted. It's changed, and that's part of that. Young people pushing the old people out. People have figured out people like Fish Mooney have figured out how to manipulate the old man, because you can pretend like and he's not an idiot, but he's predictable, and people have learned how to play the system. So I agree with you, except to say that I don't think the system is what he thinks it is, and he's in denial about that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. It's interesting because the infrastructure of Gotham seems to be that it doesn't really have one, unless you're aligned with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're aligned with somebody, the problem is that you're perpetuating a cycle of people are going to make more and more factions. In Falcone training Fish Mooney, she seems to become his downfall, and in Fish Mooney training Penguin, he's now trying to get up the ladder and get rid of both of them. So it's definitely a bit of a vicious cycle because of the system that Falcone, whether or not it was voluntary, put into place. He's kind of the moral cancer that's ruining the city, but at this point you can't cut off the head and stop it. It's just the city works a certain way, and no matter what you do or what you don't do, the city makes itself completely invested in your life, and every little detail of what you do in some way seems to relate to something else that's out of your control. And in a lot of ways that's terrifying, because you look at Gordon, and Gordon hasn't done anything. For 2 episodes he hasn't done anything that would hurt the mob or that would hurt the system. But just because he's a part of the system, his life is starting to fall apart.
Yeah, and also because he's having to pretend like he's more a part of that system than he is, just to keep himself alive, and it makes it a lot harder to do anything to bring it down because he's compromised. But yeah, looking at Falcone, he's like a remnant of the old Gotham, right? He's like a last vestige. And again, he keeps clinging to what he thinks it's supposed to be, or what it was, and maybe there was a time that Gotham was more like the kind of corruption that we used to see in, like, mob-run cities, where this is a mob-run city, but it's very different. People like there have been functioning mob-run cities. This one doesn't function, and so he's like a last remnant of the one that did. Where I'm getting at is that I think what they're doing is they're trying to show that Gotham is getting worse and worse, and the death of Bruce Wayne's parents was a big example of both, like, how bad it's gotten and how different it is now, but also the catalyst to get it really, really closer to, like, the scary Gotham that we're used to in the comics, although I think this has a chance to be worse than we've ever seen it. But where I'm going with this is, I think Falcone dies pretty quick. I think he dies before the end of the season, or at least gets run out of Gotham or something, because I think that in some ways he's the only thing keeping the city sort of kind of together. I think it becomes chaos without him. And Maroni, on the other side, I think is a little bit closer to where the city has been going, and then I think what happens is Penguin takes over and starts that war he keeps talking about and makes it worse. But I also think that Penguin wants to be the new glue that holds it all together, under something a lot more like a dictatorship, like he's a despot or something, and in a mob kind of way. What I think is going to happen, what I would think would happen if these weren't characters I had heard of, Steve, is that by the end of the season or by the end of next season, sometime because this show's not super crazy fast paced, but it's moving at a good clip. It's hard to tell how long they'll take to make all this happen. You'll have a gang war, and then I really want to say Falcone dies shortly before or after Maroni does. They both go at around the same time, and then it becomes a city run half and half between Fish Mooney and the Penguin. The problem with that is that Maroni and Falcone are both major comic book characters, and it feels really weird to get rid of them this early. I would be very surprised if they did that, and yet, doesn't it feel like that's where they're going with this?
Yeah. I almost wonder if, even to keep them in the circle, if we get to this point, because it seems like even Falcone doesn't have control over his own people. Because they're all seem to be allied against him. Fish Mooney very openly talks about how she's going to dethrone him, and no one says anything except Falcone himself. And
Maroni's ruling through fear, right? Like, people go against him because he's scary.
He keeps telling them to shut up, and it doesn't work.
Oh, well, no, that's yeah, I guess that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, but, like, you're right. Like, he is trying to rule through fear. He's trying to be a really strong leader.
But you're saying he doesn't have it...
of what Falcone is.
But are you saying that he doesn't have it together any better than Falcone does?
Yeah, because I mean, like, we saw the guy that he was trying to get to rob the casino, and it seems very much like everyone in Maroni's camp understands how Gotham works and how to do things and how the mob works, and Maroni is just impatient and wants results before he can come up with a plan, and that might ultimately be his downfall. I wonder if we get to this point where Maroni and Falcone are in charge, but they really are just proxies for Fish Mooney and Penguin's war.
I don't think so. I think the law of TV drama says that they gotta go.
Yeah.
Except they're comic book characters I've heard of. The problem is, it's hard to tell with this show if they'll go far enough as far as to get rid of major characters with names from comics, right? Because we just don't know yet. When somebody shows up in Flash or Arrow that you've heard of, you can usually say, okay, they might get killed off, but this will happen before they do, so they can do the major comic book thing. This show, all bets are possibly off.
And I kind of hope that we do that. I hope at some point, relatively early in the season, that we introduce something that's completely counterintuitive to what the comics are, and firmly establish that this is not going to be predictable. Because I think if the longer that they stretch this, and the longer we start thinking about things of, well, in so much time this character has to become this character, we do a disservice to the show because we keep putting it underneath Batman's shadow, despite the fact that it's trying very hard to do its own interpretations of these characters.
And it needs to,
I think it has to do something crazy.
It needs to let itself just be an interpretation, because so far, I'm buying it. It's working. And I want it to go its own way. I like that the major, like, ideas and themes that are being played with are the things that you like seeing done in Batman. I like that Bruce Wayne is very Bruce Wayne. But so far, none of these characters are so contrary to what they were in the comics that it's hard to call them that, right? So, like, play with the ideas, play with the character traits, but what actually happens can be anything.
Yeah,
and that's where I'm hoping we're going.
I wouldn't mind if the Riddler just starts showing up in season 2 or something. It's gotten to this point where both the actors and the ideas are selling me enough that a superhero enthusiast has to joke of just kill Bruce Wayne. I think if they do something drastic like that, it's going to be okay, because the show has finally established its identity. And we no longer have any credence to the theory that it's just another Batman show that should have been a Batman show.
Yes, and more, I don't feel that way about it. But the big exception is Bruce Wayne, because what's being done with him? Let's go to him now. Him and Alfred. What's being done with Bruce right now is so interesting and engaging to me that I want to see the whole gambit of it. You know, I want to see him go all the way up and become Batman, because I'm buying that this kid could become Batman, and it doesn't feel as much like like a Batman show without Batman, because Batman. Here's the thing: Gordon's not getting anything done, like you said. Now, I don't know where things are going later. Okay, so I'm just saying this having watched 5 episodes, but Gordon isn't getting anything done. This city needs Batman. You see what I'm saying? It's not a Batman show without Batman. It needs him. He's not around yet. Now, can they sustain that for 7, 8, 10 years? I don't know, but right now I'm buying it, and right now it feels like there is occasion for story for Bruce Wayne. He is one of these shows, many protagonists, that I care about right now, and I'm very interested in all of the things that he's investigating and trying to understand who his parents were and how that company worked. I like the idea that Wayne Enterprise is a corrupted company, just like everything else, and his parents maybe didn't know that or understand that. I still think it's possible that Bruce Wayne comes to discover and has to come to terms with the fact that his parents were just as bad as everybody else in Gotham. But with what Alfred keeps saying about them, I'm not sure yet if they're going to go that far. I also am a little bit worried that we might run into this trend of every horrible thing that happens because of a major corporation is Wayne Enterprises, like it was Luthor Corp, because with Smallville, because his parents were responsible for Gotham, and now they were in a roundabout way responsible for what will become Venom. Okay, so like 2 really major Batman comic book things, Bruce Wayne's parents are directly responsible for, or directly or indirectly responsible for accidentally creating. Oh, okay. So, like, now, because, I mean, like, what's that trend going to be like? Because then Bruce Wayne, by association, is connected already to both Arkham and Venom.
Yeah, it's a little perplexing. I would almost buy it if they don't continuously do this.
Yeah. But because I mean, we're talking 2 episodes in a row.
And, Thomas Wayne died. We have this thing of like Bruce Wayne's company is run by businessmen, and it's nowhere near as altruistic as it used to be. So I think if we keep playing up that, but not tying it so much to the villains, it could certainly work. I wish we didn't have to be so cynical about like Hollywood productions at this point.
Yeah.
Because I really want this show to be like a 2-3 season thing, and then they get artistic license to do something else with it. Because I don't know if you can sustain this for 7 seasons like we talked about, but it's interesting enough that I want to see it last to wherever the creators want to go with it without restriction.
And I don't want it to be popular to the point where it has to keep going past where it should go, although the obvious foregone place for it to go is Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. The difference between this show and Smallville, I mean, there's a lot of differences, but the difference in premise is that in a lot of continuities, Superman is Superboy. There is no Batboy, you know? I mean, we're not watching Clark Kent and going, okay, you have a cap off of a date when he can finally put the costume on. But you have that with Batman. He's got to at least be old enough to put the suit on. When you have superpowers, you can put a suit on at 13 and go fight crime. But when you're Bruce Wayne, you can't do that unless you have a mentor that makes you a Robin, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, like, obviously, we don't want to see 13-year-old Bruce Wayne trying to put a bat suit on. That would be preposterous. So, and I don't want to see him even try to fight crime when he's 16. I kind of hope they don't go there. And they might, but I kind of hope they don't go there. So I'm just saying that the obvious foregone place for the show to go is to be on for 7 or 8 years, and then the last thing we see is he puts on the batsuit. Can we sustain that? Well, what we're, as you said, what we're seeing a lot of people say in our comments and in all over the internet is, could we please have a time jump at some point? Could we please, have the show 3 or 4 years, then time jump, have a lot of the same characters and actors around, and just go 5 or 6 years ahead, so that you don't have to do too much with the makeup and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, they can be played by the same character, by the same actors, but then recast Batman and let him be Batman. They're not going to do that. I don't think. I think it's very likely that they're going to want that Smallville thing of the last episode he puts the costume on.
I almost want it to go 7 seasons because I want to see this kid be Batman. I think he's an amazing actor.
And so far they've made me want to see every stage of it, so I don't know if a time jump wouldn't take something away from the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost at this point where I think it'd be really cool if they did one of that Batman Elseworlds stories. I think it's called Thrill Killer, where someone else is Batman first. I think it's Dick Grayson's Batman. And then Bruce Wayne gets inspired by Dick Grayson Batman and then eventually joins that crusade when he grows up.
Weird. They won't do that.
I almost think you could get away with that if you did it right.
They won't do that, but yeah.
No, they won't. But I think it certainly helps alleviate some of the problems of the show not being able to work long term.
I'd like to run down now just some random notes, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Unless there's any more, there might be some more Bruce Wayne stuff we want to talk about specifically. Honestly, okay, let me say this real quick. Him and Alfred are getting closer and closer, and I'm liking that more and more. And at the end, when Alfred can't help but sit down and help him research because of what they found out about Viper, I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. I love the fact that it's kind of the child wish fulfillment where your parent is also someone you can order around.
Yeah. I also wonder if we might not ultimately see some social commentary that comes out of that. Like, what happens when you let children raise themselves, and they don't really have a parent? But it's more complicated than that too, isn't it? Because Alfred is a parental figure, but also he is the servant of the household, and the only person left is Bruce Wayne. So what the roles are and how they work are undefined and confusing, and that makes for good drama. It's very interesting. It's what we always had with a lot of versions of Bruce Wayne and Alfred, but getting to see him this young and still being able to order Alfred around. I mean, how does Alfred do anything but do what he says? That's his role, and yet, is it anymore? Should it be anymore? What do you do? This is tough. So yeah, I'm interested to see all that because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
That was dumb. I'm interested because it's interesting.
The closer they get, Grant Morrison has this thing that he mentions about Bruce Wayne is that even though Bruce Wayne is inspired by the death of his parents and he loves his parents, there has to be, just as a child, there has to be an element of resentment that his parents left him alone. And I think if we get closer and closer to Alfred, and we get more revelations about the corruptions of his company, if we can't introduce that element a little bit, and then maybe finally, because we have such a great child actor, if we could finally do some commentary about growing up without parents or something like that, because that's something we don't get nearly enough of.
Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, random notes. First of all, I want a shirt that says "Don't" 500 times across it. I wonder if that'll turn into a thing after this episode. I'm gonna try to make that shirt and get that shirt and wear it once or twice for Gotham discussions. Just don't. And I thought it was really funny that I was trying to figure out if there was some kind of like a symbolic thing with that shirt where it was, or I was wondering if that shirt was informing anything in the narrative, and the only thing I saw was it says "Don't" a bunch of times, and then just before he gets killed, he keeps like resisting them, Gordon, and telling him not to come any closer. But I don't know what else that was about. I thought that shirt was really funny.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I'm not sure where it came from or if it's a reference to anything, but it is really cool.
It's really funny. I like that we continue to get more of a contrast of Bullock's worldviews versus Gordon's worldviews, and yet they're starting to get along more. I don't know if they're getting along better came out of nowhere, because they seemed more pally this episode than they have.
Yeah, at least in the opening when they're getting food together.
Even after that, there are bits where I'm just like, they are a lot more kind of amicable than they were.
Yeah, I wonder if it's gotten to this point where they just got used to each other. And so Bullock saying anything to Jim isn't going to work, and same with Gordon. I think it's entirely possible that they may have rushed that relationship just a tiny bit. But Bullock and Gordon have such very well-defined philosophies of life that I don't know if you could stretch that anymore with animosity.
You almost don't need like everything that Bullock is really summed up in "It's lunchtime," right? Yeah. Like when he says "It's lunchtime," let's not go investigate that. It's not our problem. It's just a job to Bullock, right? That tells you everything you need to know about that character. It's lunchtime.
Yeah, and I love the scene near the end when we get to that warehouse. And everything is gone, and Bullock says that, "Did you really expect anything different? It's Gotham." Yes,
that's an important line.
It was very Chinatown.
Yes, it was very Chinatown. I forgot about that movie. Wow, I'm so glad you said that. It was except it didn't come at the very end, but it was I want to say that was the end of Chinatown.
But I think that's the last line.
It's the last line of Chinatown. Yeah, you've never seen Chinatown. That's an excellent film. Okay, so here's a question. How can Maroney be sure that the Penguin story is true just because Gordon told him the same story? You have a lot of cops in the pockets of mobsters and stuff in this city. How does he know that he and Penguin haven't made some kind of a pact where if certain things happen, they would both tell the same lie?
I think it's because Gordon, if I guess in Maroney's view, if Gordon was lying, then Gordon is purposely tying his hands behind his back, and that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially because Gordon has a reputation of being the good guy cop.
Because he allegedly killed Penguin, and if people find and they really drove this home, if anybody found out about it, he would immediately be dead. And Gordon drives that home in that scene to Maroney. Yes, you're right.
That's he's got liabilities. Okay. There'd be no reason for him to lie.
Why would he lie? Yep. Okay. Thank you. It was a question. I wasn't sure. This is getting involved, which is wonderful. And every now and again, something will come up, and I'll be like, I need to talk to someone. I don't understand. I was really kind of surprised by everyone will see Wayne Enterprises for what they are. When we get to the end and we find out that they're responsible for this thing, one of my biggest questions right now is how involved were Bruce's parents in any of this, or were they completely, not aware of it?
Yeah, because we get a mention of the guy that's releasing this Viper all over the place, that he went directly to Thomas and Martha Wayne to get the production shut down. The moment they died, they started it again. And that's kind of been a thread so far of that Thomas and Martha Wayne are stopping plans or grinding them to a halt. When they're gone, other people have to make the decisions. And I wonder if Thomas and Martha were completely aware of all of this corruption, but a little bit like Gordon, they felt like there was nothing they could do, and simply by having their wealth and living out on the outskirts of the city, they felt like they could escape it as much as possible. And they really did just give up at some point. And
also, if they got involved and said anything, they would be putting their lives too much on the line. They couldn't risk it. Because I was wondering this whole episode, Bruce could put himself in a major line of fire if he's not careful, right? Like, I think he gets in major danger at some point.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of my predictions. I think at some point someone's going to hire an assassin to go after Bruce Wayne.
Or at least kidnap him.
Yeah, I also think it would be interesting if this version of Alfred, like the actor says, is like a past soldier. Yeah. Then what if Thomas and Martha hired him because they need a bodyguard?
Yeah, and hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, exactly.
So Bruce Wayne, we get to see Bruce Wayne go to his very first charity function ever, and as you would expect, someone tries to kill everyone. And Bruce Wayne is going to find soon that he should never go to these functions, because every time somebody's going to try to rob or kill everyone at every one of them.
And everyone always seems to have access to some giant TV to make proclamations.
I know! Why was that there? I love that!
It's an absurdly giant TV.
Yeah! And it's one of those TVs that has, like, different panels in it, too.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought that was hilarious. I'm really digging all the goofy Batman tropes that are in the show.
Yeah,
they get it. They know how crazy that stuff is, right? The people making the show are not taking it too seriously, and yet it is a really serious show, or at least it's a really dark and violent show. You know what I mean? But it's about stuff. But I don't think that there's. I think we have to stay away from the word realistic with this show.
Right. I think with this show, at least from what I can see from the first 5 episodes, it seems like the writers and directors have 2 main goals, and that's atmosphere and ideas. And every now and then the plot moves a little quickly, and I have a little criticism of the whole Viper storyline. Okay. But Gotham feels very alive.
Yeah.
And everything about the factions and the political drama between those characters, all of that works. It seems like they're working very hard to build a world and to get you to think about things before they're thinking about how to progress the storyline as far as week-to-week bad guys go. it almost feels like that's the afterthought, even though it's the A story.
Yes, and that's an easy pitfall to fall in with this kind of thing, right? When you're bringing in like random bad guys. But I will give them this with the Viper story. I think they did a good job in bringing in another bad guy plot that again is really Batman, but also is continuing what I think might be an emerging pattern. Of a theme and an idea that they keep playing with. I think that the Viper thing is exactly the same thing as the Balloonman thing was. You get power really fast, and then you can't keep it. Like, it's impossible to keep your strength, your position of strength in the city. So the balloons go up really high, and you're at the top of the world, and then you immediately get killed. And with this stuff, you get super strong, and you're like top of the world. I think was thrown around in this episode. It's interesting that they used that phrase, but this wasn't the Balloonman. That almost connects them, maybe accidentally. And then you have people get super strong, and then immediately they get killed, and then you've got Falcone, like at the end, Fish has sent someone after him. He might not be able to keep his position of power. I think this stuff is idea-wise all connected.
Yeah. And it's interesting because in trying to get all of this power that comes through Venom, they're breaking the foundations of themselves. Just like when everyone tries to grab power in Gotham, they're breaking the foundation of the city.
Yes, exactly.
I think all of that's really interesting, and that's kind of where I mean, like, this show is really taking the idea seriously, even if the Viper plot is a bit fast. And my only criticism of that would be that when we get to that philosophy professor, he sort of explains the whole story in 2 minutes so they can get to the Wayne function really quickly.
And they've done that a lot. The
exactly.
Balloonman thing was explained really fast.
Like,
last week we had it.
The Balloonman was really quick and really jarring.
And
the kidnapping plot was the same thing.
Yeah.
I think it really is just ideas over the plot, and hopefully that doesn't build a house of cards for them.
Yeah, but I don't think it's ideal characterization. I do think that the show is sufficiently character driven. I do think that these characters are coming alive, and that's good. So yeah, the plotty stuff is being kind of rushed. But it's the kind of thing. It's easier for me to live with that if I care about the people involved, and if the show is taking its time in that stuff. But I'm with you. They're maybe having a difficult time cramming everything they want to in 45 minutes sometimes. I mean, this is a dense show. I think every episode's been pretty dense so far.
Yeah, clearly. We've had a lot of discussions. There's a lot of topics that we didn't even get a chance to mention because there's already so much other stuff we want to mention.
I mean, I think we've already been at this for an hour or maybe even over an hour, and like we can't get it all in, So there's a lot in the show. I really like it. What other is there any other major stuff or even silly little stuff you wanted to bring up before we go to best moment, worst moment?
Nothing that immediately comes to mind now.
Okay.
I just like that Viper is green because that immediately reminisces of Venom, and they call it Venom later on.
It is. I tweeted, okay, in a superhero or comic book derived TV show, you should not inhale or inject anything that is green. Just green things are bad. Stay away from them. All right, best moment. I bet yours is mine. Go ahead.
Is, I think, pretty easily the Maroni-Gordon Penguin scene.
It's the best scene in the show so far.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's got some of the best acting. It's got some of the best directing. The music is just perfectly underplayed, and it sounds a little bit dangerous too.
More than that.
I love everything about Maroni's actor. He's really fierce when he needs to be. He's really lovable, and it's almost terrifying.
I will comment on the music. I don't know if you noticed this, and I don't know if it was on purpose, but if it wasn't, it's a great happy accident. Penguin gets brought back to the Slicer. And immediately after that, the tense music, and this is a wonderfully tense scene, and it was hard to tell where it was all going. I mean, I knew they weren't going to kill Penguin or anything, but it was hard, but it was sufficiently tense and urgent. Immediately, the music sounds vaguely like saw blades.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Okay.
And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
There was a lot of care taken into making that scene work the way it was. I just liked all the nuances and stuff. It was really good stuff. And that guy playing Maroni, man, like I don't want to see him and Falcone get killed, because they're both really good actors and they're both fascinating characters, and I need them on screen together a few times.
Yeah, I mean, this actor, it's very easy to go back and like think, because I saw him for 9 seasons of Dexter, but every time I look at him, he just doesn't feel like that person. He's wonderful range.
Yeah, he's completely disappearing, and yet he's using some of the same talents to create a completely different character.
Yeah. It's really hard to get a pin on that guy, because sometimes he feels like the lovable let's go have a beer with Batista from from Dexter, I mean.
Angel, yes. Right.
And then the very next minute...
The serial killer vampire, yeah.
David Boreanaz needs to be in the show.
David Boreanaz as the serial killer...
Serial killer of the week.
A blood spatter analyst who is also a vampire. That seems like a perfect job for a vampire. Yes. The only thing that would be better than that would be if he worked in a mortuary. That was also my favorite scene, so we'll move on. I had no worst moment, Steve, because Barbara wasn't in this one.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I just want to eliminate that category. If I really had to, like, stretch and pick one, it'd be the scene with the philosophy professor, just because I feel like it rushed the plot, but it's not a bad scene.
You can't pick that, though, because it's a little rushy. But A, Venom gets name dropped, and that was exciting. I'm sorry, that was exciting. And B, you got to see an elderly man get all super strong and bust through a wall.
I know, it was awesome.
So, you know, that's great. So yeah, there is, for me anyway, there is no worst scene in this episode. I feel like we almost have to axe the worst moment category and start just saying the Barbara scene, because like just make Barbara scene a category. Hopefully, eventually, that will stop being... It is possible for that character to maybe turn around, maybe, but so far, man...
Yeah, it's the writing, but it's also the acting, and I just hope along the way, because she's being paired with so many good actors, that she does catch on.
Okay, now we're going to go on to quotes. You know what, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start with the That's So Bullock quote, because... If your favorite quote is a Bullock line, it might be the That's So Bullock quote. So I'm going to start with That's So Bullock. And today's That's So Bullock line is, what's altruism?
Oh, I had that written down too.
What's
another one I had for That's So
altruism?
Bullock is, do you think we can push a button or something and she'll rewind automatically?
Yes, that was also so Bullock. And now, what is your favorite?
At the very beginning of the episode,
yes,
when he says, "If you want to look good in a swimsuit like me, you need a lot of this and a lot of this," and he's got like a milkshake and a burger.
What is your favorite not That So Bullock line?
My favorite not Bullock line comes from the main bad guy of this episode when he says, "It seems like bad things only truly happen when they happen to important people."
Yeah, and that's true. That's true. I mean. It's true in this show. My favorite was, this is maybe throwaway. I bet a lot of people wouldn't have even thought of this, but it made me think about stuff with this. Toward the very beginning, we're not in your country, we're in Gotham.
Yeah.
And the reason I liked that was because Gotham is played like a country. We shouldn't even talk about the United States in the show, because clearly the federal government has no jurisdiction whatsoever in Gotham. It might as well be. And the reason I wrote that quote down is because a lot of folks in the comments, we didn't talk about anything specifically, but a lot of folks in the comments have said, or maybe we did, I forget. It would be impossible for a city to be like this without any kind of federal, federal government coming in and trying to change things and fix it and stuff. And so I just really like that. Like, it's almost like they're acknowledging that.
Yeah. I really do like that line. And then a close second would be when Bullock says, "Forget it, Gordon, it's Chinatown." I know Chinatown, it's a Gotham.
It's Chinatown! Yeah!
it's a line from Chinatown with Gotham inserted. I really like that moment because that perfectly encapsulates the same sentiment.
Did you write down any of the guest stars? Because I missed them this time.
I wrote down 4 of them, I believe they were, yeah. There was Donald London, who played the main bad guy, Stan. And he's from The Sopranos, which is really cool.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
There's Peter Maloney, who played that old professor dude. I didn't recognize him from anything, and I didn't recognize anything from his IMDb at all.
Oh, okay, all right. Wow.
There's
if he's gonna start an acting career, he should probably get rolling on it because
yeah, he
was great. He was very good.
Then there's Jeremy Davidson, who plays Nikolai, the other mafia person, and he's from a movie called Salt and the TV show White Collar, which I watched.
Okay. Cool.
And then there's the woman who plays Mathis from Wayne Enterprises Middle Management, who's Sharon Washington, and I didn't recognize her from anything either.
Okay. Let's go on out of predictions and hopes. A lot of this show has been us giving predictions and things. Anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up here?
Not especially. I still want to stick to my prediction that at some point this season that Bruce Wayne is either going to get kidnapped or someone's going to attempt to assassinate him.
I think that happens. Any big comic book references that weren't Venom?
Aside from Venom, no. I've read that the Viper is actually a comic book character and he's a villain of the Flash.
Yeah, but
aside from Venom, there really isn't much.
Yeah,
people have also said because the everyone's skin gets really pale when they smile, it could also be a reference to Joker Venom.
Do they smile?
Yeah, when we see the very first guy do it, and he smells the green stuff, he gets like a really big grin on his face, and all of his skin just gets really pale.
I'm gonna say that's not too much of a stretch necessarily, because you could see Venom and Joker Venom potentially being derived from the same substance.
Yeah, because they make a point that this substance that they're using right now, Viper, was refined in something else is called Venom.
Oh, is that what it was?
The less perfect version of it, so it could very be possible that it's from the same thing.
Now, folks that really want this show to go in the direction of the comics will probably be annoyed that Venom seems to be originating in Gotham City. But again, I think we can reimagine this any way we want to.
Yeah. I mean, we reviewed the story where Venom first appeared, which was a Batman Venom, and it originated in Gotham there. But
did it? I thought
the production moved to Santa Prisca.
See, I thought it came from Santa Prisca in the first place.
No, if I remember right, I think it was the scientist that created it in Gotham and then moved to Santa Prisca to set up a production company and get like a bunch of soldiers out of it.
That's right. That's right.
I don't remember. It's been a couple years since I read that.
We reviewed it like 2 years ago. It's not like I was supposed to be prepared with that today. All right, so it's time now to go on to our trivia questions. And what was your question last time, Steve?
Last week, I thought this one was pretty easy. An early 20th century author is credited with inspiring the name Arkham. What writer is this, and what short story did they first use the name? And it was H.P. Lovecraft, and the first time we hear the name Arkham is from The Picture in the House, although there is the unnameable, which is the first time we see Arkham.
And that was answered correctly first by Kevin Sheely on email, so congratulations to you. And my question from last time was, what color socks was the Penguin wearing with that super awesome suit that he had? By the way, we didn't talk about this, but the way that they're starting to have him just go by the Penguin as his, like mob name, I think is working really well.
Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I love how Maroney mentions that it works for you and he needs to keep it.
Do you know what color the socks were?
I do not.
The socks were
they blue?
They were green. They were green socks. When all else fails, when you're talking about a superhero comic book TV show, go to green. The socks were green, and that was answered correctly first by somebody over email named Aaron. Didn't get a last name, so good job to you. And now it's time to go to our trivia questions for this week. What do you got for us, Steve?
All right. Since we mentioned Joker Venom at the end of this, there's actually a story where Maxie Zeus takes Joker Venom and mixes it with another drug to create something called Chuckles. What drug does he mix it with?
Wow.
And it's a real-life drug.
That's oh, so it's not Vertigo then?
No, it's not Vertigo.
Oh, okay, okay.
It'd be really cool to get Joker Venom and Vertigo mixed, though.
Of course, Vertigo is a creation of Arrow, I think. I want to say that Vertigo wasn't a drug in the first place, was it?
No, as far as I know, I think Vertigo was like an eyepiece thing that disorients people, but
yeah, that's what I thought. All right, my question, that's a great question. My question this time is, as always, from the episode. It's, what drink does Gordon order when he's with Maroney, and Maroney asks him if he wants something to drink? I love to go to the food questions, and in fact, last time, I want to say 2 Arrow discussions ago, I asked a drink, somebody ordered a drink question. So anyway, if you think you know the answer to either or both of these questions, you can go to Geekvolution.com, go to the contact page, and send us your answers there. We're asking folks now to not send them through personal message anymore. I'd like to get them all in the same place because I'm having a hard time sometimes telling which one came first between those two places. So go to Geekvolution.com, go to the contact page. You don't have to do any kind of sign in or anything like that. You can just put any kind of name, first and last, code name, whatever you want to put in there, and then write your answer, send it to me, and whoever gets these first, of course, will be mentioned in next episode of Gotham Discussions. We should have Dan's News back with us again next week. So the three of us back again talking about Gotham. And Steve, did you expect this show to be this good? Because I really didn't.
I had no idea from the premise or from the early trailers that it was going to be so idea-driven and so fascinating to talk about every week. I thought this discussion show would be 30 minutes long tops.
So did I. It's working. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Thanks for being with me, Steve, as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Everybody, please have a good day. We'll see you later. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Steve Baxter.
Bye.